Hello and welcome back. It's Alfred again, going to do another Google Suite class video. This time it's going to be Google Forms. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and do like I normally do. Get the instruction sheet open on one Google Chrome window on the right side and go ahead and put the other window, the workspace. So today we're going to cover Google Forms. So I'm going to go get to Google Chrome. I'm going to first of all get to the instruction sheet. The instruction sheet, I will give you this link at some point, but it's bit.ly/gforms/clpres. That's an abbreviation for class presentation. And I'm going to do like I normally do now. I'm going to minimize or close out the document outline. I'm going to go ahead and go to the three dots in the upper right, and I'm going to get a new window. And I'm going to drag, this is a Windows machine, so if I drag it off one of the sides, it automatically takes half. It asks what I want in the other half of the screen. So I'll click the instruction sheet. And then I usually like to have more workspace than instruction sheet space. So I'll point to this dividing line here, double-headed arrow, drag a little bit this way, maybe a hair more, and then I'm good to go. So we're now going to cover Google Forms. Google Forms, overview of Google Forms. As a reminder, I don't read every single bit of wording here. I gloss over parts. I give you tips and recommendations. Please feel free to read it more diligently on your own. You might also know as I do these presentations, if I notice a step is slightly wrong, I'll do the correct action while we're doing the video, and I'll fix the instructions soon thereafter. So occasionally I do find my typos and stuff while we go over these. So Google Forms is one of the apps in the Google Suite. It's a free online questionnaire, quiz maker, or survey program. So it makes surveys, quizzes, basically a question and answer type system. With Google Forms, you can create and send a form to ask questions or quiz respondents. So you want to test people's knowledge of something. The responses are summarized in Google Forms or can be exported to a Google Sheet. We will have a chance to work with responses. While working in Google Forms, like the other apps, you don't need to save it, although you do have to name it and choose where it's going to be saved to. Just like the other apps, if you've done docs, sheets, and slides with me so far. So the Google Forms screen, as usual, it's important to kind of have some idea of what the screen looks like a little bit. I also have a link in the instructions here to a little tutorial page that also has a really nice picture of the Google Forms screen. So as usual, Google Forms will open on a new tab. You close the file by closing here. It's going to be very important you're comfortable with tabs in this particular lesson, because when we start to preview forms at one point in time, the preview opens on another tab, and we're going to have to close that out each time. Okay. You have the file name box in the upper left, just like the other apps. You have the Forms Home button to get to the home page of Google Forms. You have some tabs in the middle. There's a couple of tabs between switching between the questions or the responses. Then you have a toolbar here in the upper right. Be aware that the toolbar is much more minimal than we saw in the other apps that we've used. Here you have the form title. That's basically what's the overall form about. And then you have questions that come below that, and it always starts a blank form with at least one question. To the right of the questions is always an Insert Objects button to add more questions, sections, videos, images, just a title above something. And there's also an area in each question, I maybe should have marked it, but there's an area at the bottom of each question that gives you a couple of little tools to relate to that question, such as copying the question, deleting the question, and such. So that's detailed a lot with this wording as we continue down here. So creating a Google form, just like with the other apps, there's two main ways to do it. You could do it from being in Drive first, going to the New button. So of course in Drive, you get to the folder where you want it to be saved. Then you click the New button, you click Google Forms, or you go to the arrow and choose either blank or from template. The secondary way to do it is just go straight to the website forms.google.com and start to create it. Remember, if you go straight to the website, it doesn't save the form automatically into the folder you may want. It saves it straight to my drive, but it can be moved from inside the app. Themes. When creating a survey, you can tailor it to your audience with themes similar to that of PowerPoint. It controls the color, a picture at the top, the font that you're using, a lot of that kind of stuff. So it just makes it more pretty or more playful, whatever it is you want to do with the theme. Questions and question types. So essentially speaking, when building a survey or form, you need to think of what questions you need to ask and what responses you expect to receive. So it's really easy to make a questionnaire, but it's harder to think, how do I want the data back? So think of things like that. For example, do you want respondents to type answers or choose from supplied answers? Another example is to consider is whether respondents choose one answer or choose more than one answer from a list. The more you know about the responses will help you choose what type of question to use. Google Forms offers 11 different types of questions. I detail them here. Short answer, like a sentence. Paragraph, multiple sentences. Multiple choice, people choose from options, but they can only choose one answer. Check boxes, they choose from options, but they can choose many answers or none of the answers. Drop down is similar to multiple choice, except for it takes less space. They click a little arrow, it opens up all the available choices. They need to choose one and one only. They have one called upload files. That doesn't work well unless the people you're sending it to are signing into Google. So if they don't sign into Google with a Gmail account, it's not very useful actually. I put it in bold here. To fill out this question, respondents need to be signed into a Google account. Linear scale, those are your feeling type questions and stuff where it goes 1 to 10, how do you feel about the following, or how do you rank the following? That's what linear scale is about. Multiple choice grid is basically like a table where you have questions on the left and possible responses going in the columns, and they can mark one possible answer if it's a multiple choice grid. If it's a checkbox grid, similar idea to the multiple choice grid, but they can mark multiple answers. There's a date question, so people could fill out any date in the box. So if you want, I don't know, when is your birthday? Not necessarily date of birth, but when is your next birthday coming? They could mark it. Or what date will you be available for an appointment? Things like that. Time is very similar. They can choose the time or the duration for something. You can change the question type after you make the question. For example, if you make a question, a multiple choice question, you can change it to a drop down or checkbox just by changing the question type. Just be careful when doing that. Sometimes you may lose the responses you've already typed in. Response validation. Response means what are they answering? Data integrity is really important when you create a survey. You do not want people to answer certain questions in a way they feel, in any way that they feel. For example, if you ask someone to type in hours worked and you only want whole numbers, meaning no decimals, you do not want them to be able to type decimals. This is where response validation comes in. Response validation allows you to set rules based upon how people have to answer questions. To access response validation options for a question, click the More button in the bottom right corner of the question. We're going to do that to create an email question in our survey because I don't like the built-in email question because it forces it to be the very first question on the form. So, previewing a form. It's important when designing your form that you preview it, which means basically you can test it out and look at it as if somebody's going to really answer it. And you can actually really answer the questions and submit it for practice. We get into that later down the road. Previewing gives you an opportunity to see all that. You can answer the questions and everything. So let's go on to Grow Your Skills 5.1. So we're in the 5th app now already. Boy, we're rolling right along. Creating what I'm calling, and you're going to do, the Housing Preferences Survey. If necessary, open your web browser, step 1. I've already done. Step 2, click in the address bar and go to drive.google.com. And then I'm going to click Go to Drive. You might be able to just simply click a possible email from the list, or you might already even be logged in. I'm going to type in the email that I'm using here. Okay, now I'm on step number 4 because I had to sign in like step 3 said to do. Step 4 says double click your Google Suite class folder. Step 4 also says if you don't have it, yeah. And then step 5, double click your Forms folder. Step number 6 says to click New, go to More, and click Google Forms is step 7. Go ahead and click Create and Share. Step number 8, Click anywhere where it says Untitled Form, right here at the very top, and type Housing Preferences Survey. Now you can put a form description down here. I'm going to choose no to that. You can choose to add an extra little detailed comments about what this form is about if you want to for form description. Step 9, we're going to name the form now. Click in the file name box in the upper left where it says Untitled Form and change the name to Housing Preferences Survey. Since it already says it, you could just click back down in the form wherever you feel like. It could even be out here in the purple. Now we're going to play with the theme before we build the questions. Step 10, click the Customize Theme button, this kind of artist palette looking thing. And says choose a font, color, and click the Choose Image button to choose a picture, or click and choose the Choose Image option. So you'll see if you click a color here, it changes the color. You could even change the background color of questions if you want, or the background color of the whole thing, lighter or darker. So it's a variation of this color scheme. You can also click Choose Image, and you'll see they have a lot of categories of images on the side. So since this has to do maybe with housing, maybe I'll check the other category and see if there's anything that might look nice there for housing. Nothing specifically housing oriented, but maybe you like one of these patterns a little bit instead. So if you click it, you could click Insert. What that's doing is it puts a little image up here. If you end up not liking the image, you can always click the X here. It goes back to more of the default. You can go back and choose a color if you like such as purple here. You can choose this if you want it to be a little bit darker. You can also change the font here. They only have 3 font choices: playful, formal, decorative. 4. I'm just going to leave it on basic. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'll go back and click a picture that I might want to use. Maybe I like this purple one for whatever reason. And it just leaves the picture up there all the time. Okay. Close this panel when you're done if you want more space. Okay. So step number 11, click the wording Untitled Question. So here where it says Untitled Question, and type first name. It says to make sure it says to the right short answer. So you want this to be short answer. If it doesn't say it, you just click here and choose short answer. Okay. Sometimes it guesses correctly, sometimes it does not. So click where it says short answer. To see the other question types, you could click here for a picture of the Google Forms question types, but I just showed it to you. For more information and specifics about each, you can go to Google's help. I put a link here for that. Step 12, click the Add Question button on the Insert Objects box. So here, this plus and new questions always come after the current question. The current question always has this blue kind of marker on it. I click it, and according to step 13, I'm going to click where it says Untitled Question, which I actually don't really have to. I can type last name. You can just type last name. Make sure it's short answer. Okay. Now step 14, click the Add Question box on the insert box here, the Add Question. I'm going to scroll down a little for you. I think I'll move my picture more out of the way. Try to put it up here. Okay, so we're now on step number 15. We're going to do response validation with the question we're making now. So the step 15 says, click the wording Untitled Question if you have to, or where it just says question, type email. Make sure the question type is short answer. Step 16, we want to make sure the person answering the form types a properly formatted email address with the response validation. Click the More button in the bottom right of the question, so this More button. And in fact, we choose response validation. What I'd like to do, and I forgot to do it earlier, I apologize, I want to turn on my little cursor pointer that will help you see a little better where I point to. I apologize for not doing that earlier. Step 17, I chose response validation. Step 18, it says click here where it says number and choose text. Step 19, click where it says contains and choose email address. Step number 20, click the Preview Form button by clicking the Preview button. So that's up here on the toolbar, Preview Form. Okay. You should see a preview of your form often. While previewing, notice that the preview opened in a new browser tab. So up here at the top, a new browser tab. Although you can answer the questions, please wait until later. Click in the email question, type the letter A, and notice the pink for the response validation. Erase the A. So you should be seeing pink here for response validation. I'm not seeing it yet until I click away from there. So that's what I'm talking about. That response validation. See, it says must be a specific email address. So it's not typed in correctly. That used to show up after typing just one letter. They fixed it where at least it lets you finish for a while and go to the next question. So that got better since literally 9 weeks ago. So we're going to, step number 21, close the tab when done previewing. If we're asked if we want to leave, click leave. So I want you to get into the pattern that after you preview, close the preview. It's very important, otherwise you get tons of tabs up there with lots of previews and other stuff, and it gets very confusing. So also start to get an idea of what it looks like when you're editing. Editing as the toolbar, the send button at the top, these tabs, the insert objects box on the side, but when you're previewing, none of that is there. Okay, so get very used to that. We're going to add a bunch more questions now. Okay, so now that we've closed the tab with the preview of our form, we're on step 22. Make sure you're in the email question. You can click in it, and then click the Add Question button on the Insert Objects area over here. In the question box here, you should be blinking, but if not, click and type, do you plan to rent or buy? That's step 23. Make sure that the question type in step 23 says multiple choice. Now we're going to start putting in the possible answers. Step 24, click where it says option 1, type rent, press enter, type buy, press enter, and type not sure as the final response. Stay in this question here. Step 25, click the add question button on the toolbar. Make sure you're blinking where it says question. Click there if you have to. Step 26 says the question is, what type of housing are you looking for? I like to type the question marks. It looks nice that way. Make sure step 26 it's multiple choice, and we're going to fill in the options now. So I'm going to click where it says option 1 according to step 27. I'm going to type house, press enter, apartment, press enter, townhouse, press enter, and condominium. Boy, that's a tough one to spell, isn't it? And then where it says in step 27, finally click add other, that's really important. Don't type the word other. You want to use Google's built-in feature because automatically you'll see when we preview the form, it puts the line giving somebody a spot to type in their own answer. So that's what's really awesome. Step 28, we're now going to alphabetize the responses by dragging the move icons for the responses. So 29 says rearrange the question order, use the move icon, and drag the what type of housing are you looking for question above. So that's moving the whole question. But alphabetize the responses by dragging the move icon. So step 28, apartment should be first, so I drag it above there. Condominium should be second. Now they're alphabetical. You always leave other at the bottom because you want people to have the actual choices that they could choose and not have other kind of alphabetical. It always looks weird. Other's always kind of a side note. Even though it doesn't fit in alphabetically, that's the way we want it. Step 29 says rearrange the question order. So to move an entire question now, you use the arrows at the top of the question. And it says, essentially speaking, rearrange the question order, use the question move icon and drag what type of housing are you looking for above do you plan to rent or buy. So I drag it right here, above do you plan to rent or buy. Now the two have flipped order. Isn't that really cool? Step 30, click in the do you plan to rent or buy question. Because remember, new questions always come after. And click the add question button. Step 31 now. We can click the wording question or make sure we're in there. And which cities are you interested in living? Interested in living in. And I have a typo, I can right click it and fix it. What are our options? Step 32, click and make sure it's check boxes according to step 31. Step 32, click where it says option 1, type Albany, press enter, Berkeley, Cerrito. I'm just filling them in. And once again, we're going to click Add Other. Now remember the difference between a checkbox question, people can mark many of these, none of these, while a multiple choice question, they can only mark one. Okay. Step 33, click the Add Question button on the toolbar. And we're going to type in the question, how important is the school district in your housing location? And it's really location preference, but that's okay. And it says make sure in step 34 it's a linear scale. So what I'm trying to do with this survey is give you a chance to experiment with almost each type of question to get a feel for what they're all like. So step 35 says click the one label, that's here, the one label, and see you could change it to 0 or whatever you want. You can also change the 5 all the way up to another. So where I'm saying click the one label, that means here, optional, and you can put in a label meaning what's the lower side versus what's the higher side mean. So the lower side we're gonna say not important. If I can spell it right. While the I can press tab to get to the label 5, I could say extremely important. I noticed I have a typo there, and I want to make this a capital I just to match. So remember, if you have a typo, you just click back in there, eventually get a cursor and fix it. And I messed up here as well. Right click it. Unfortunately, the right click didn't give the capital, but that's okay. Okay, so I have that one. I'm on step 36. Click the Add Question button. Step 37, make sure you're blinking where it says question and type how soon do you hope to move in. That's one of my most typical typos. I accidentally hold shift a little too long. Step 38, I'm going to click where it says option 1 and I'm going to type 1 month. Press enter. Up to 3 months. The next answer is up to 6 months. On the next one now, up to 9 months. And then enter for one more, up to 1 year. Oh, and actually there's one more after that. Wow, lots of answers. More than 1 year. Okay, so what happens is we're going to now make this type of question in a moment. We're going to switch it, but you'll see this takes up a lot of space on your form. So we're going to preview the form, and then we're going to possibly come back and change this question to more of a drop-down type question. But we'll see. I forget if we do that now or later, but that's okay. So let's go ahead. That's step 39. Let's preview the form. Oh, I apologize. I had you do it in step 37. Instead of keeping it as a multiple choice question, click here where it says multiple choice and choose drop down. What's going to be beautiful about that you'll see when we preview the form, which is step 39. Step 39, click the preview button. You'll notice when you get down to the question that's a drop down, how soon do you hope to move in? Instead of having all those responses listed, much like the city's response, and have this form have to scroll a lot down to the bottom, that's where the drop-down question gets really, really handy. Step 40, let's close the tab with the preview. Step 41, click in this how soon do you hope to move in. Make sure it's your active question because we're going to add some more questions. We're almost done adding our questions. We're going to do a multiple choice grid, which is the last type that we're going to do, I believe. So step 41 is to click in the question. How soon do you hope to move in? And then click the Add Question button. Step 42 has the question. Type housing preferences. Let me fix my typo. I apologize. And we don't want it to be short answer. So we're going to click here and choose multiple choice grid. Now in a multiple choice grid, you have to think of it like a table. Rows, columns. The columns are the answers, the rows are the questions. So we're going to click where it says row 1, and we're going to write these really short questions. Allow pets. Press enter. Swimming pool. Enter. Close to public transportation. And then exercise room. Townhouses and such have those types of things. Even sometimes apartment complexes. Allows smoking. And then finally, covered or garage parking. Okay, so now we want to fill in what are the possible answers now. So I'm going to click where it says column 1. This is step 44. Click where it says column 1, type yes, press enter, type no, press enter, and type maybe. Okay. Step 45, click the Add Question button. We're on our final question. Make sure you're blinking where it says question. Step 46 says type any comments or other information I should know. And make sure it's on a paragraph, okay? Now, I didn't get into it, but you can require questions. It's not a good idea to require questions while you're previewing your form, but if you do end up needing required questions, make them required after the form is created and you've previewed it a bunch of times, because it's very, very challenging to preview your form when you have required questions, because if you have to get to the next page or whatever, you can't advance without actually answering them. Step 47, let's preview the form. So I'm going to click the eye looking icon. Here's what our form looks like now. And what's really cool is when you get to the multi-grid question. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 separate yes and no questions, basically speaking, we put them in a little table where people could answer them a lot faster. And it takes up way less space on the screen. I love that. I love that multi-choice grid. It's one of my favorites. So now we're to the point of closing the tab when done previewing, step 48. If you're asked, do you want to leave, you have to click leave. If you need to look at my version of it, you can click here and see my version, but I'm doing it with you, so there's really no need. But when you're on your own, feel free. To submit your work, we want you don't share a form with somebody unless you want them to collaborate. So I don't want you to share. You're going to download your form kind of as a PDF. That gives me an idea if you kind of got it right. Now, you can't export as a PDF in Google Forms as you can with the other ones. So I'm going to teach you a way to take pretty much any website and save it as a PDF. And if you're signed into Google Drive, there's actually another trick you could do, but we'll get into that a little bit on another day with a group if we need to. So to submit your final form to Canvas without sharing and making me a collaborator, you need to download it as PDF, click the menu button in the upper right corner, and choose print. So I think print's right here. Unfortunately, my picture's in the way, but here's print. So I'm going to click print. And in the dialog box that comes up, I can slide that over here now, I think. Where it says destination, you click here. Oh, mine's slowing down a little bit. Give it just a second. I think it's having problems finding my printer. It's not happy about that. Okay, so it took a little bit of extra time there to find my printer. It's because it's a network printer. It's not directly attached to my computer, so sometimes that takes a little longer. So I'm going to click here where it says HP is the printer I use, but you can just click whatever's in this list. You can technically choose Save to Google Drive, but then share it with me. But I just prefer for you to kind of learn also how to convert stuff that's already on a web page into PDF. And this way you can also upload it to Canvas because we can't share from Canvas for those who are doing the Canvas course. Stop work as well. Nice way to turn it in. So I'm going to click Save as PDF. It shows me an example of it here. All I have to do is click Save. My machine asks where I want my downloads to go, so I'm going to leave it in the Downloads folder. I just can click Save. Your machine might already save it already, and it usually appears in the bottom left once it's been downloaded. So that varies on each machine if you've changed the setting there or not. Step 51 says to leave the form open. We're going to move on to making a form now using templates. So you can save time with templates in Google Forms. You can choose an existing template to start numerous types of forms, such as party invites, RSVPs, event feedback, and more. Templates give you a form that is already created with sample questions. You can edit the template to fit your needs. So just as easily as you can edit any other form or use a template, it's a way to get started without doing a lot of work. Step 1, click the New tab button in your browser. So it's this plus here. In the address bar, go to Forms. This is step number 2. It has to be plural, forms.google.com. Sign in if necessary, but you don't have to. That's step 3. Step 4 says click on the Find a Time template. So if you don't see one that says Find a Time, you got to click Template Gallery. And in the Personal Gallery, there's one that says Find a Time. Go ahead and click it. And it's loading that form up. So it talks about a little bit about it there. It says speed up your form creation. I can just click OK, got it. You can recreate questions from other forms. That's a new button they just added, actually. You can import questions from one of your other forms. It's really cool. So on our instruction sheet here, find a time. We did that one. Now we need to, but it's currently saved in the My Drive folder. This is step 5. We're going to move it to our Forms folder by clicking the folder icon here in the upper left. We double-click the Google Suite class according to step 6. Double-click the Forms folder, step 6 also, and click Move here. Click Move. Now to submit this work to Canvas, we're going to start doing that right now. It says to submit your final form to Canvas without sharing, once again, we have to download this as a PDF. So we're going to repeat the process we did a couple of minutes ago. We click the step 7, click the 3 dots, go to Print. Make sure this is still on Save as PDF, which it likely is. Go ahead and click Save. Once again, mine, I have to confirm where it's saving. Yours might have already done it already. Now I'm going to go to the Canvas Suite course, step 8. I'm going to remind you how to do that for those who are doing it and how to submit this assignment. So I'm going to click the plus. I'm going to go to canvas.instructure.com. I need to sign in. Whoops. Go ahead and log myself in. I'm going to close the tutorial. I'm going to click Google Suite here because that's the class. Click Assignments on the left. You can also click Modules to get to it. Reminder, I may have mentioned this before, but when you get into the Canvas course, click Show by Type makes things a lot easier. Also, reminder, you can click these grays to collapse these headings if you don't want to scroll as much and get confused by which topic you're looking at. Right now we're in Google Forms. This is the Google Forms Creating a Form in Templates assignment. So I click it. I click the blue Submit Assignment. Down here in the File Upload area, I try to remind you which ones to submit, but sometimes I forget. In this particular case, we want to upload the Housing Services preference. So I click Choose File, click Downloads on the left. It's the Housing Preferences. I can click Add Another File. I can click Choose File, and I can choose the Find a Time, and then click Open. So I've submitted the two. I can add any comments if I need to. I can click Submit Assignment. Okay? And I say close the file by closing the Browser tab. That means the template one here, this Find a Time, I can close it. I'm going to go back to the Housing Preferences Survey tab to now continue about images and video. So images are a fantastic way to make a form more eye-catching. Google Forms allows you to easily insert images from your computer or search the web or by URL. Images can be used for responses or placed above or below a question to be the basis of the question. So like maybe if you're teaching or trying to show somebody something related to a map, you show a picture of a map and the question below it says, which area on the map is blah, blah, blah. In that way they look at the picture, but the picture itself is not one of the responses. It's just based for the responses. Or you could even have somebody watch a video and then say, what were your thoughts about that? That's more quiz oriented, but those are ways that you could also use images in their videos. You can use videos from YouTube or URLs. So if it's already on the web somewhere, generally speaking, the way that Google generally works with videos, they tend to be in YouTube or in your Google Drive somewhere and could possibly be shared. That's about the only other way you could possibly do it. Sections, Google Forms can be very long. So you noticed our form got a little long when you were scrolling. Maybe you don't want people to scroll that long. So you can create sections to break it apart. The other thing that you could do with sections is you can move people to a certain section based upon an answer. So we as an example, if we set up a form, we can make a question. Well, here, do you plan to rent or buy? That goes to a totally different set of questions if they want to rent versus the questions if they want to buy. So we're going to play a little bit with sections in this lesson as well. We might have to add a couple of questions in order to do that, but that's okay. You're going to learn a bit about sections and how to sectionize a form. Okay? So, grow your skills 5.3, adding images. Make sure the housing preferences survey is open. If not, go to your Google Drive and get it. Click in the what type of housing are you looking for question. And click on the apartment response. Step 3, click the pictures button over here on the side. Step 4, click Google image search. I just put the word search here, but it's Google image search. In the search box, step 5, type the word apartment and press enter. Okay. Click on a suitable image and then click select. So I'm going to choose this one. This one's fine for me. I will click insert. Step 7 says repeat steps 1 through 5 for the rest of the answers. So we want a condominium. I click here on condominium, click the picture button, Google image search, type condominium. And it even suggests it, so I can click condominium. I can choose any picture that I think is suitable. So I think I will choose this one. Why not? Go to the next response, house, click the add image, Google image search, type house, choose a suitable image that you'd like to use. Go to the final one, townhouse, Google image search, town. Click that. Go ahead and click insert. So I've added in all my pictures. That was step 7. Step 8 says to preview it. So something you're going to find interesting is you don't have any control over the size of the pictures. Sometimes also as a reminder, you have to scroll to the top to get to the preview button. See how the pictures come in automatically fixed in size? You don't have any control over that. I'm sorry, no matter how big or small you make the picture, Google's going to automatically make it line up this way. Okay, and you'll notice when people are going to answer it, they can click the picture or they can click the actual bubble. Either way works, which is kind of cool. Okay. Step 9 says close the tab when we're done previewing. So I'll close that tab. If it asks you to leave, you got to click leave. Okay. Okay. Step 10, we're now going to play a little bit with sections and stuff. And that's coming in a little bit, but we're going to do some stuff here. Step 10, click the do you plan to rent or buy question. Move the do you want to plan or buy question by dragging the move icon and drag it above any comments or other information I should know about. Okay. Now, step 11, add a section. Click the Add Section button. Click where it says Untitled Section. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to click the Add Section button first. It looks kind of like an equal sign. and click here where it says Untitled Section. Let me slide my picture out of the way again. And type, will you need a loan? Oh, I'm sorry, Untitled Section. Type buyer questions. Then, step 12, click the Add Question button. Now I'm going to type, will you need a loan? Sorry about that. And notice how it has suggested answers? You can click Add All, and it puts them all in. Isn't that awesome? Freshness! Step 14, click the Add Question button. How much, so step 15, how much do you plan to put down? In other words, a down payment. Make sure it's a multiple choice question. Step 15 was done there. Step 16, click where it says option 1 and type 0 to 50,000. Then 50,000 to 100,000. Then we have the next one, which is 100,000 to 150. Then we have 150 to 200. And then the last one, more than 200. Okay, we're going to add another section. Click the Add Section button. Click where it says Untitled Section. So remember the Add Section button. And these are, click where it says Untitled Section and type, these are renter questions. So only somebody who's renting. Step 18, click the Add Question button. And step 19 is how much rent per month. So kind of what range of rent are you looking for? So we're going to click where it says short answer and choose multiple choice. I'm going to start typing in the options again. So give me a moment to do that. That should be 1,500 to 3,000. I see a typo I have in the literature there. Apologize for that. And then that way it makes more sense if you do. All right, yeah, because it skips from 2250 all the way up to 3,000 without having one that says 2250 to 3,000. That doesn't make sense. So it's missing that one, which is 22. So let's put 2250 back in here. It's missing the 2250 to 3,000. And then 3,000 to 3,750. And the last one, more than. Those are those super wealthy people who can afford stuff like that. Okay, so sorry about that. I will fix that question before you actually do the work yourself or get to the assignment. I should be able to fix that for you. Step 21, click the Add Question button. For the question wording here, step number 22, are you willing to be an apartment manager for paying rent? That would be an awesome opportunity, wouldn't it? Don't have to pay rent. And step 22 says you can click the Add All after typing the question to have yes, no, or maybe. Step 23, we're going to add another section. We're going to click where it says Untitled Section and type comments. Okay. Now we're going to preview the form by clicking the preview button. So you're going to see it's going to be a bit different now. We have the questions we had before, and we have a next button down here now to get to the next section, the buyer questions, a next button to get to the renter questions, a next button to get to the comments before they can finally submit. So you can break up the larger form. In a minute, we can also direct people to certain sections based upon an answer. So we're going to do that soon. Step number, preview the form. Okay, so we are now back to closing our preview. That was step 25. Step 26 is we're now going to start directing people to sections based upon their response. Step 26, click the Do you plan to rent or buy question and click in the rent response. Step 27, click the menu in the bottom right corner of the question. Click Go to section based on answer. And it puts these little drop downs next to each answer here. You really didn't need to click in the rent response. It really doesn't matter. As long as you could get to the menu down here. Step number 28, click the Go to section based on answer. We've done that. Step 29, in the Do you plan to rent or buy question. For the rent option here, you're clicking where it says Continue to next section for rent and choose Go to section 3, renter questions. Step number 30, click the Continue to next section drop down for the buy question, and you're going to go and click section 2, buyer questions. Not sure, click the Continue to next section drop down for not sure, and click Go to section 4, comments. And for some reason, mine didn't, it didn't save my comments when I typed it there, but that's okay. I just go down there and type comments for the name. So that means now if I go back to the question here, over scrolled. If I go back to here, now it says comments for there. So sorry about that. For some reason it didn't save it. I thought I had typed comments for the section, but maybe I had not. Okay. So now it says scroll to the Are you willing to be an apartment manager for rent question below the question. So the right here, are you willing to be it? See how it says continue to next section? It says click that continue to next section drop down and choose section 4, comments. Now it would do that anyways, but essentially speaking, I just wanted you to see how you can actually jump people after a section to a certain section as well if you want to do that. That one's not so necessary. Step 33, scroll to the how much do you plan to put down question. Below the question it says after section 2, continue to next section. So that would be here. How much do you plan to put down? You want to make sure that people don't go to the renter questions after they answer this. So what you're going to do here is click this one and you're going to choose section 4. Okay. Now, that basically speaking, what that did is it makes sure that when people are done answering their renter questions, they go to comments for sure. When they're done answering their buyer questions, they go straight to the comments section as well. Okay. So we're going to preview the form and we're going to test it a little bit. And I'm going to show you kind of how to test it, but you're going to click like the buy question, make sure it jumps to the buyer questions and things like that. I kind of show you how to do it. Then we're going to close our preview and come back to rearrange sections. So we'll get to that in just a second. We'll preview. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be ready to preview the form now. That's step 34. Preview the form by clicking the preview button. And let's test it a little bit to make sure that it jumps to the right sections. You can scroll down to just the question that sparks the whole thing to jump to sections. The do you plan to rent or buy question jumps to 3 possible sections. If I click rent and click next, it should go to the rent questions. And it did, renter questions. I'm going to go back. I'm going to scroll down. This time I'm going to choose buy, click next, make sure it goes to the buyer questions. It did. I'm going to click back. I'm going to go down here and choose not sure, make sure it jumps all the way to the 4th section, the comments, and it did. I'm going to go back. Now, the next thing you want to test, and I didn't have you test it before, is if you go to rent and do next, after next, it should not go to the buyer questions. It better go to the comments section. Click next. It went to the comments section. Great. I got that one right. I did back again. Now, see, back is a problem there, and you can't control that. It's going to go to these renter questions. If I go back again, if I choose buy, I do next, and I do next here, it should go to comments, and it did. So my section jumping turned out just great. And now I can do step 35. I can close my preview. That puts me on step 36. It says scroll to any section and click the menu button. So that means here where you see a section like this, see how you have a section here? Like this section here, the renter questions, I'm sorry, that's how you control the sections. Here's renter question section. I can click here, and we're going to move the sections now. So I'm going to click move section. Notice how it shows a list of your sections. So you could either drag them into the order you want them to be in, or you could use these little up-down arrows. But in step 37, the section should be arranged as follows. Section 1 should be Housing Preferences Survey. Great. Section 2 should be Renter Questions, so I'm going to drag that up. Section 3 should be Buyer Questions. Section 4 should be Comments. When I click Save, it's all jumped into the order that I want it to be now. Isn't that awesome? So now all we need to do is get ready to submit our work. So we're going to save it as a PDF again. You're going to have to notice that when you save it as a PDF to a file in a location that already has the same name, it's going to put a parenthesis 2 after that. That's okay. Don't worry about it for when you upload it to Canvas, for those who are uploading to Canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and click the 3 dots for the More button. I'm going to go to Print. It was behind my picture. It's still on Save as PDF. I'm going to click Save. I'm going to go ahead and click, make sure it downloads for me. Click Save. Oh, this one already says it already exists. So I'm going to say no, and I'm going to purposely put my own 2 after here, so it doesn't replace the other one. You might not be asked, and because I got asked, I got the replace question. If you don't get asked, you're going to get the 2 next to it. Now I'm going to return to the Canvas course, step 53. I'm going to click Assignments on the left. I'm going to scroll down to my Google Forms, this one, Images, Sections, and Settings. I'm going to click Submit Assignment. I'm going to click my Choose File, make sure I'm in my Downloads folder, and do my second Housing Preferences Survey. Click Open, add any comments if need be, submit the assignment. When the confetti comes, hooray, you did it. So you can leave the form open. I'm going to click back on the Form tab. And we just want to quickly look at a couple of settings and go from there. Settings is coming up in just a moment, so we'll get to settings in just a moment. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do the little exercise here on settings. There's nothing that gets turned into Canvas or anything, but we just want to quickly look at some of the settings. It's important. Some of them can be really, really important for what you're doing. So make sure you're at your Housing Preferences Survey. Step 2 says click the Settings button here at the top on the toolbar. There's 3 tabs to be concerned about: General, Presentation, and if you want to do a quiz. If you're thinking of setting up a quiz, feel free to check in with me if you want. But under the General category here, Step 3 says click the checkbox for Edit after Submit. That means people can edit their responses after they submit. Step 4 says click the Presentation tab. And click the checkbox for Show Progress Bar. I love that. It means that as they're filling out their form, they see how long it's going to take to fill out. Step 6 says click in the confirmation message area. See here where it says your response has been recorded. We're going to customize that. And we're going to type in what we see in step 6 that says thank you for completing the housing services, housing preferences survey, sorry. We will be in touch shortly. And I'm going to fix my spelling error here. And then I ask you to quickly click quizzes, but don't change anything because you can make it a quiz. You can assign point values and all that kind of great stuff. You need to now do step number 7, I should have put here, is be sure to click save at the bottom. Now we're going to preview the form, and I actually want you to answer it once just to see how the links appear at the very end. So I'm going to click preview. I'm going to put in a first name. I'm just going to put in Bill Jones. You can make up anything you want. His email can be bill@att.net. What type of housing is this person looking for? They want an apartment. The cities, they're willing to live in these cities. How important is the school district? Relatively important. How soon do they want to move in? Half a year. Just choose these arbitrarily any way you want. Doesn't really matter. Actually, close to, there we go. Covered garage, that's important to me. Do you plan to rent or buy? This person will be a renter. You can click next. So they get the renter questions. Maybe they can only afford this rent. Are they willing to be a maybe? They're not sure. They go next. You can add any comments if you want, but the important part is to see what the settings you just did is when you click submit. Voila, you got these links here. Submit another response was always going to be there. Here's the message you put in, and here's the edit your response if you need to. So that was the end of this section for now. We're going to move on in just a moment to sending a form and such. Okay, great. Now we're on our sort of final sections of this form stuff, is we're now going to learn how to send the form to people to actually get responses from real people. And we're also going to work with those responses after we get them in. We'll see how Google summarizes them and things like that. So I'm going to go on to the section here where it says sending a form. Before sending your form for responses, it's a good idea to preview it and answer the questions yourself. So that's actually one reason why I had you do it before, is because you really needed to test the sectioning. But even if you don't have sections, you want to see what does the form look like maybe on behalf of the people answering it. Is my question order okay? Do I need to rearrange that? Do some of the answers seem odd? There's a lot of things you want to consider to try to think about it. So that's why when you practice answering it, you can kind of say, whoa, that question's not worded right, or responses aren't quite right, maybe they're ordered, whatever it may be. Previewing it a lot makes a lot of sense. Google Forms allows you 4 main options to get responses to your form. So they call it sending the form, not sharing. So a lot of people in the Google class tend to say a lot, I need to share my form to others. You're not sharing unless you want a collaborator. You're sending it for responses. So we want to try to get that terminology correct. So getting responses is called sending. Sending a form is different from sharing. I just mentioned that. The options are to send an email. That's the most direct way, as long as you know the people's email address. You can put a link somewhere, like on a website, a business card, whatever, flyer, whatever. You can embed it on your own website if you have a website. Or you could do it through social media. I don't do much social media, but they allow you Facebook and Twitter options to get it straight onto there. I'm assuming it's probably just a smaller link, would just be a guess, but I don't think it puts the actual form on the Facebook post or anything. So by far the most common method is via email. The links are just as popular. The send link tends to be very long, so you might want to consider using one of the website link URL link shortening websites like tinyurl and bit.ly. They're both free. I tend to use them a lot. Both of them let you customize the back end so that it can be a little more easy for people to remember. Similar to what I did getting to this instruction sheet, which is bit.ly/gformsclpres. That's a lot easier to get people to type in than what you see up here in the address bar right now, which is the real link. So nobody's going to type all that in. So working with responses, after sending the form, you need to view and manage the responses. You can view a summary of all responses or just each question, or view individual responses for one particular person, how they answered all the different questions. The summary responses show lots of charts to help you visualize and compare. The individual responses allow you to view a particular person's responses to the questions. And of course, an individual question response allows you to just look at how they responded to the individual question. So it's all pretty cool. Additionally, Google Forms can export the responses to a Google Sheet, so we'll have you do that here, and that's where you could practice some spreadsheet skills if you already have some, or even learn more spreadsheet skills. You can do things like filtering, you can sort, you can run different calculations that you want to look at, a whole bunch of things like that. One thing that's important is once you export a Google Sheet, any new responses to the form are automatically added to the sheet at the bottom, so thus the form is always connected to the spreadsheet unless you break it. You can choose to break it, but I don't normally teach that because most people don't need to know it. The connection is one way, so the form sends things to the sheet. The sheet cannot send back to the form. So any changes you make in the sheet are not reflected back in the real data of the form. So it's a one-way connection. Form feeds the sheet. You can type whatever you want on the sheet, you can edit, you can change whatever you want on the sheet, but it does not reflect back into the real form. Okay? So that's a really important thing, but it's also good to know. So we're going to do Grow Your Skills 5.5, sending the form and working with form responses. So make sure our housing preferences survey is still open. If not, go to your drive and get to it. Step number 2 says click the send button. So that's this send button here. And note, here's the 4 areas right here: email, link, embed it on a website, and the social media. So step 2 says in the make sure it's on email, which is this one, that's why it's purple. In the to box, type my email address, Miller BAS classes. Oh, it's suggesting it, great. So I can just click it. And you don't even have to change the subject or anything. You don't even have to change the message if you don't want. Now you might see something that's very tempting here that says include form in email. You can do that if you want the form to exist in the person's email message and they can just answer it there. That's only going to work really well if the form does not have sections. Since this form has sections, I would not bother doing that because as soon as they try to click next, it's going to reopen on a browser tab. So that's a nice tip. I probably should have put it in there somewhere, but that's okay. So I can go ahead and click this send. So that has been sent to somebody where they could really answer it now. That's all it takes. And you can list multiple email addresses in there as well. And it won't show in the person's email who receives the email. It won't show everybody else who was addressed. It's not going to be like that. So that's what's very nice about sharing, generally speaking, and sending a form in this way. Google makes one individual email sent to everybody. It doesn't show everybody's address. Step 3, now we're going to put in some responses and then be able to view those responses. So step 3 says preview the form. We've been doing that a lot by clicking the icon. It says answer the questions, putting in any responses that you want to make. This is step 4, or choose. Click the submit button when done. So let me answer here. I'll just put in somebody. I'll just put in Jane Smith. Her email. Now you can skip email if you want, or you could just keep it small. But you have to put in a legitimate email, meaning it has to have the component parts. It has to have a couple of letters, an @ symbol, a couple of letters, a .com, .edu, .whatever. Okay, I'm going to have this person wants a house. They're willing to live in all these, just to make it fun. The school district's important. How soon do you want to move in? We'll say up to 9 months. They would need pets. They really want a pool. They've got to be close. They need an exercise room. Smoking really doesn't matter. Covered garage. Of course, with the house, you'll likely get it. They plan to buy. Click next so we get to the buyer questions. They need a loan. Their loan will be medium size or smallish. Do next. Any comments? House, whoops, should be at least 3 bedrooms. Because that question was never asked before, because maybe they just want to ask later. So I click submit. This is the important part. Step 5 says click submit another response. So I'm going to click submit another response. And essentially speaking, step 6 says answer the form 10 more times. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick right now. Once again, you just answer it any way you want. You make people up. You could do whatever you want. Just answer them any way you want. So I believe I've gotten 12 responses. If you're not sure exactly how many responses you have, you can always go back to the tab to your left, which is the real form in the editable mode. If you click it here where it shows responses 12, you want that number to be 12. So that means I can close this other tab that I have a significant number of responses to look at. So that took a tiny bit of time to answer, put in fake information, but it also gives you a good chance to experiment with your form. Make sure that you understand how it's being answered. Did I do the questions well enough, etc. So now I've closed the preview browser. Now we're going to actually work with the responses here in the Google form. You should be in the editable version of your form. You'll always know when you're in the editable version because you have the toolbar at the top, the questions and responses tabs, the insert objects box, all that kind of stuff. So with the number, and step 8 says to click responses here. So now right here, we're looking at a summary of the responses. So there's 3 tabs here, summary, question, and individual. Notice the summary, question, and individual links near the top. Stay on summary for now and scroll down to see the responses and charts. So here it lets me scroll even in here because there's enough people to have to scroll. So I have to use the outer scroll bar. Here's the last name question. Oh, I had 3 Joneses. Wow. Didn't even realize I did 3 of them. Different email addresses. Here's a nice little pie chart showing how many people want apartments versus condos versus whatever. A nice bar chart showing the common city. Seems like Albany had the highest count. If the school district is important, a lot of people felt it was important. Nice pie chart for how soon you need to move in. The housing preferences of allowing pets and all that kind of stuff. Decent little charts there. Everybody wants pets. All 12 people. Do you plan to rent or buy? Most people in this case are going to rent. How much rent per month? You can see, wow, 50% have quite a bit of money the way I did it. So it's just nice to see all these different responses summarized for you. And Google does a pretty good job of that. And it will continue to change those based upon new data. Okay. So now I'm going to go back up to step number, step 10. It says scroll back to the top and click the question link. So not up here, not questions, but question here. Very important. Now you can look at, we're on the first name question. These are the various responses. Notice here, here's the number of first names. Okay. So I'm going to click here where it says first name. And I'm going to choose, according to step 11, what type of housing are you looking for? And then you can see 4 responses wanted house, 3 responses apartment, etc. So that's basically what the chart was showing. Okay. Now it says scroll back to the top if you have to, so you can see this area at the top. Step 12 says click individual. Once again, notice the toolbar shifted over here to get to different records. And you have a print button, a delete button, all that kind of stuff. Now we're going to navigate between people. Step 13, scroll to the top and use the toolbar to move to the second person. So right now I'm looking at Bill. If I go here, there's Jane. And it says in step 14, repeat steps 15 and 16 to look through more individuals. Actually, not 15 and 16, I'm sorry. Steps 13 and 14, or 12 and 13, whatever. But just keep going to the right. You'll see different people. You could scroll and look at what that individual person chose. So when you want to contact that person or whatever, you know exactly how they responded. So now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to export our responses to a Google Sheet. Sometimes you want the data in a spreadsheet to make your own charts or to summarize it with formulas, pivot tables, etc. Scroll to the top to see that toolbar. So make sure you get back to the very top up here of what you're looking at in terms of responses. And click the Export to Google Sheet button, step 16. So I'm going to click this icon here, Create Spreadsheet. Now it's going to name it automatically, and it's going to save it in the same spot where the original form is. That's what's really magical about it. If you had some other spreadsheet you wanted to put it in, you could actually do that, but I'm not going to have you do that or try to go over it in such a short class that we have together. So all you have to do is click step 17, click Create, and it's opening it up on its own tab. Okay. So step 19 says Google Sheets opens on a browser tab with a spreadsheet detailing all the individual responses. Notice the spreadsheet name. It's already named it for you, Housing Preferences Survey Responses. So that's really handy. The questions are going along row 1. Automatically, Google creates the timestamp of when these particular form questions were added in. So that's really cool. Okay. So it says now in step number 19, feel free to view my spreadsheet. You don't have to. Step 20, scroll and look at the data. It's sometimes hard to read. So you might have to scroll to the right. See how some of it's cut off. Can't even really read the whole questions at the top. Stuff like that. So that was scrolling left or right. So we're going to fix some of that. We're going to do a tiny bit of formatting, maybe a quick filter, stuff like that, just to remind you of a couple of spreadsheet skills. So step 21 says click the Select All button or Control A, Command A on a Mac. The Select All button is between the 1 and the A up here. If you click it once, it selects the whole sheet. Step 22, on the toolbar, click the Text Wrapping button. So the Text Wrapping button for me, because my toolbar doesn't have it right now, I have to click the More button. And it's this icon here called Text Wrapping. And I click the one that looks like it's taking a U-turn. Now it makes all this wording come in on multiple lines if it has to. I said in step 23, I'm just going to click on the sheet, feel free to widen columns if you would like. So for an example, maybe you want to widen the city column here, so you drag it out a little bit. Now it's on one line or 2 lines for just one person, but it looks a little more readable. So you can do that as much as you want on your leisure to make it look a little bit better, whatever you feel like you'd like to do. Step 24 says click anywhere in the data. So I'm going to click anywhere in this data. And click the Format menu. So this is once again step 24. And choose alternating colors. I love alternating colors. It's one of my faves. See how it highlighted for you? It's one of the few times Google does a good job. I'm going to choose this kind of weird tealish looking one. And see how it's formatted this with alternating colors? It's really kind of nice. And then it says to click Done. Now you can customize this all you want, but I'm not going to spend the time to do that here in this particular session. So I click Done. Okay, for an example of working with data in a spreadsheet, click anywhere in the data. So I click anywhere in the data. Click the Data menu and choose Create a Filter. So Data menu here, Create a Filter. Puts these funny little filter icons here. Okay. And step 27 says point to the filter button in column E. So here, what type of housing are they looking for? And it says uncheck all the responses but apartments. So there's lots of ways you could do that. You could just click each individual one of these. There's a couple different ways. You could clear all of them and then click the one you need. But just uncheck townhouse, uncheck house, uncheck condominium. Click OK. These are the only people that are looking for apartments. Isn't that pretty cool? Out of all that data, you have those 3 people who are looking for apartments. Now you can work with just them. You see, so that's step 28. You only see individuals who chose apartment. The other responses are hidden. Notice the gaps in the row numbers here. Click the filter button again in column E and click house to add house into the mix to have apartments and houses. Then click OK. Now we have people who want just apartments or houses. We're excluding the townhouse and the condominium people. Step 29, point to the filter button in column E again and check all responses, and then click OK. So I put in step 30, you could practice filtering your data any way you want. That's totally up to you. So it could be coming over to here, you want to filter how many people put 5 for the school district being really important, that kind of thing. You could also filter within filters, but we don't have time for it necessarily in this video. So feel free to always email me if you have questions on how to filter or want more help with that. When you're done filtering, step 31, click the data menu and choose Turn Filter Off. Now we're to the Submit Your Work part, and we need to download the Google Sheet file as an Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to go ahead now. This is step 32, where we're going to click them to do the Google Sheet one. Hold on just a second here. Okay, so we're on the portion now where we're going to submit our work. There's 2 files we're going to need to submit here. We want to submit the spreadsheet here into an Excel format, and then we also want to submit a PDF version of the form responses. So we're going to do a couple of things here. In step 32, it says to submit your work, you need to download the Google Sheet file as an Excel spreadsheet. Choose File and then Download. So we've done this before many a times. Download, and we just click Microsoft Excel. Now remember, my machine sometimes asks where it wants to download, sometimes it doesn't. This time it didn't ask, it just went straight down here. So it's kind of strange that it acted a little weird, and sometimes it asked me where to save and sometimes it didn't. It's probably because I did the save as PDF from a print command, not an actual download command. So usually, yes, that's correct. When you go to File Print, you choose Save, it needs to know where you want to save it. So now we can basically close these responses here, and that drops you back in the form. And now it says also you need to download the responses as a PDF file in the form survey. Make sure you're on the responses link near the top. So click the menu button in the upper right, choose Print All Responses. So it's this one here, and choose Print All Responses. Make sure this is still on Save as PDF. It takes a second or two to load the preview because remember it's 12 or whatever people, maybe 13, and it has a lot of pages for those individual people. So in fact, mine actually says 72 pages down here. You certainly would not want to really print that. So be careful. Don't actually print that. And then click the Save button. And I'm going to go here, and you can put a 3 after it, or you can put responses. You know, that never hurts if you can change the file name and put responses here. And now that's been saved. So now I can finally go to the Canvas course. Back here to the Canvas Google Forms. I can click Assignments. Go down to the Working with Form Responses. So we click the Google Forms Working with Form Responses assignment. We click Submit Assignment. In the File Upload area, you click Choose File. You can choose the Excel one if you want. Click Open. Then you click Add Another File. Click Choose File. Choose the other one, that the PDF that you hopefully added the word responses to. Click Open. Add any comments if you need to. Click Submit Assignment. And once the confetti comes, you're all good. So that was basically the Google Forms in-class work that we do together. I wanted to do it with you to try to help if you get stuck anywhere or if you want to review it, whatever it may be. So hopefully we'll see you for our next one. Our next one should be Gmail. It's not going to be overly intensive like these ones have been because it's something people use a lot. So our next one should be Gmail, then Google Calendar, and then wrap it up with a little bit of Google Chrome. So we're hopefully going to get a few more videos, and hopefully I'll see you for those. I hope this helps. Take care. See you soon.